So you want to go to study in France, or maybe you're even considering it, but you absolutely have no idea how much it's going to cost you. I'm actually doing this video because I wish I had seen a video like this while I was doing my own research, because it would have saved me a lot of headaches. I decided to become a firstborn daughter for all of you so that you don't have to suffer like I did. In this video, I'm really going to focus on my own experience because that's what I know perfectly. And of course, I went to France as a student, which in my opinion is an easier way of actually leaving your home country. So obviously, once you've decided that you want to be a student in France, you have to find a school. The first step is find a school that actually suits your needs. And actually for me, I started doing my research like 5 years before I went to France. I started doing it when I just got into university in Kenya. I did my bachelor's in Kenya. So I would go to the UNISERV offices in Nairobi for their career fair. So there I would meet representatives from different countries, from different schools. Most of them were from Australia, from Canada. And initially I wanted to go to Canada, but after doing my research very well and looking at the cost of studying in Canada, I just realized it was not something that was feasible for me. And then at some point I was like, I studied a little bit of French in high school, why not look into France? And when I looked into France, they actually had the course that I was looking for, which was a master's in digital marketing. At that time, 2018, 2019, it was really hard to find schools that were offering courses in digital marketing because it was something that was quite new, especially in the academia fields. And then I was able to find a school in France that was offering the course that I was looking for, and a bonus, the course was in English. And I was just like, this was meant to be. This is fate. The school I chose is Rennes School of Business, and business schools in France are like the Ivy Leagues in America. And when you compare these French business schools, which are also private universities, with French public universities, there's a huge difference in their school fees. So if you're someone who is looking to study in France but study in English, then the business school could be a good choice for you, but it's going to be much pricier than if you decide to go to the French public universities. But these teach in French, and that means that you have to invest a lot in studying French, at least for a year, for you to get to at least C1 or C2 level, so that you can be able to study in French, because imagine writing essays in French. So once you have the school in mind, then you start the application process, and this is where the money comes in. This is where your bank account starts draining. So I'll just give you the cost of Rennes School of Business at that time. Right now it could have changed because inflation has gone up, everything is changing. But at that time there was an application fee which was 90 euros. And then the overall fees for my program at that time was 18,000 euros, which is quite a lot of money. But I would say, considering that if I had done my master's in Kenya, I would have ended up paying either the same amount or even more. It was a good deal. You should also add that some schools expect you to pay all the fees at once. Obviously you can negotiate to get to pay in installments. That's what I did, because 18,000 euros at once. There's something you have to pay for, especially if you're going to be a student in France. It's called CVEC, and it's a student contribution. I think right now it's at 92 euros. And this you'll be paying yearly. There's a site that you have to go to and pay for it. It's something that is compulsory. And then of course, if you're from a country like Kenya, you need a visa to go to France, a student visa. At that time, I think I paid mine about 90 euros. And something that they actually don't tell you about is how once you get the visa, it's not the end. Once you get to France, you need to validate that visa within the first 3 months of arriving in France, and that validation is going to cost you 60 euros or even more. Maybe it has changed now. If you're a Kenyan, you should definitely put aside at least 150 euros for your visa, because you will get to France and you have to take out 60 euros out of your limited budget. Then of course you need to have your air ticket. That goes for about 700 to 1,000 euros. Depends whether you want a round ticket. It also depends on the airline that you're taking. So that's just an estimate. And then one of the most important things that you need before you leave your home country is proof of accommodation. You can't get a visa to France without giving proof of where you're going to stay for at least 3 months. And let me tell you, the nightmare that is finding accommodation in France. You need to pay at least 6 months rent in advance, or get a guarantor that lives in France. This video is really important, because now you'll have a good idea of what is awaiting you. I must say that it was quite easy for me to get accommodation because I was going to a small city, that is Rennes, compared to Paris. It's a small city. So I asked the person that I was communicating with from the school about accommodation. Then she sent me the email of a student accommodation agency that they worked with. So I got in touch with the agency, and then they tell me, yes, we have a room, but you have to pay 6 months rent in advance, and the contract starts in July. I was going to France in September, but I had to pay rent for July and August because there was no way around it. Or maybe I should say I didn't know better, or maybe I was desperate because finding accommodation is just so hard. And on top of the 6 months rent in advance, you have to pay the agency fee. I had to pay like 3,000 euros in rent even before I was in France. I remember just being like, oh my god, what if I got to France and then found out that it was a scam, that I just paid all this money and there was no accommodation. Well, thankfully that didn't happen. In total, I would say you would need at least 21,000 euros even before you step in France. You count that as money that you can't get back. And then obviously once you get to France, there's something like monthly utilities that you need, electricity, water, all these things. I'm going to use the prices of what I was paying while I was living in Paris, technically Boulogne-Billancourt, which is just near Paris. Cost could be even half if you're going to live in a city like Rennes. So monthly rent, I would say 830 euros, that's what I was paying. And then you have housing insurance, 10 euros. Electricity, you can get a classic subscription for 20 euros. You have to be very careful about the subscription you're getting because some subscriptions will be like, oh, pay as you use. This means that during winter when you put your heater on, you'll be looking at your bill and just wondering where is all this money coming from. So please ensure that you talk to your conseiller when you are booking your subscription so they can actually explain to you very well what each subscription calls for. I should probably do another video about service providers for electricity, for phone banks. I think that would be useful, you know. Your groceries, toiletries could cost between 100 euros to 250 euros. It depends on how you're living your life, obviously. If you drink alcohol, you'll definitely love it in France because you can find a bottle of wine for 99 cents euros. I mean, wine is much cheaper than water. And you'll need to pay for your transportation card. This can cost you about 90 euros if you're in Paris, 50 euros or 40 euros in other cities. You'll definitely need a phone subscription, and this can go from 3 euros to whatever, 60 euros. This depends whether the house you're in comes with Wi-Fi or not. And most of the times you don't have to pay for water because it's included in the rent, but there could be exceptions. All the monthly expenses that you need once you start living there could actually come between 1,000 euros and 2,000 euros, depending on where you're going to be living, the city, the neighborhood, how you're spending money. Definitely ensure that you're able to come up with at least 1,000 euros every month. You can get student jobs once you get there, but I think most of the time don't rely on something that you have no control over because something unexpected could happen that could make you not work. Like for me, we got into the pandemic in 2020. People stopped working. What are you gonna do if you're just depending on the work that you get there to cover your basics? It's going to be difficult. Even if you're going to a school where the courses are taught in English, you have to learn French because how are you going to be communicating with people outside school? So you should definitely put aside a budget for studying French, perhaps 300 euros. You can do that in your home country or you can go there and study. I think 300 euros is like the least. It could go to 1,000 euros, I think. It depends with the school that you go to, you know. But obviously you can teach yourself. You just need to buy a grammar book and then watch a ton of videos in French. Some other costs that you need to consider is the cost of translating your documents from English into French if you come from an Anglophone country like me. What I did is I just went to Alliance Française in Nairobi, gave them my documents like birth certificate, bachelor's degree. You can gamble with all the other documents, but please get your birth certificates translated and notarized. You can find these lawyers in France or just do it in your home country. If you have an Alliance Française, which is a certified institution, then that will do for you. I would also suggest going with a lot of photocopies of your essential documents, with your passport, your visa, your admission form, proof of your accommodation. Take as many passport photos as possible, even 50 of them, even 100 of them, because they always need them for every documentation. There's just so much paperwork in France. And to your budget, you should definitely add a winter budget, because winter stuff is so expensive. And if you come from a country like Kenya that is in the equatorial climate, the things that you buy in Kenya thinking that, oh my god, this is gonna protect me from the cold, it's not gonna cut it during winter. That is only going to protect you during autumn at most. Winter is a nightmare. So you need to put at least 500 euros aside in your budget just to buy maybe a pair of winter tights, maybe a winter coat, a hat and shoes, you know, just one pair of everything. That is going to go a long way. If you bring together the cost that you might need even before you leave your home country and what you will need as your monthly expenses, all of that come to roughly at least 23,000 euros. One of the advantages of actually going as a student is that there are some centers around cities that give free groceries to students. So you just show your student ID card and you get free groceries. It actually helps you to save up. And also a lot of schools will have like a school canteen nearby that actually subsidizes your food costs. So instead of paying something like 6 euros for a meal, you'll pay 1 euro to 3 euros or 2 euros. So that's definitely the rundown on what you need in order to study and live in France.